Greetings friends. Welcome. I'm Character NPC, your host. Welcome to my channel. Friends, you know, there's a lot of Dungeons & Dragons content on the interweb. However, not a lot of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition. I see a lot of 5th Edition, a few other versions and things, and some solo play, but not a whole lot of real AD&D 1st Edition. There was someone I saw who was putting something together, and he does a lot of other games, and he's moved on to something else now. But as he mentioned, if you enjoy AD&D 1E with rules as written, there's just not a lot of that, and he's the only one I've seen to date who did that, using really AD&D books and the Dungeon Master's Guide random tables in the back. So friends, what I'd like to do today is give you an introduction to what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, the tools I'm going to use, you know, a little bit about how I'm going to do it as an introduction to the channel, and the campaign, the solo campaign that I'd like to begin. First off, let me give you an idea of why I'm doing this. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of content out there, but it kind of falls into 3 buckets. And the first bucket, I'll say, is those who are playing Dungeons & Dragons online, you know, usually a group, and a lot of them are kind of actors, you know, storytelling, or it's just a bunch of people playing over Zoom, not really sitting in a room together like we used to in the old days. I'm older, I'm an old guy, and so you'll have to pardon me for being kind of a curmudgeon of hearkening back to the past, but I grew up in those days before there were personal computers in the home, and there were no cell phones, and there weren't even answering machines when I started out. So, you know, again, pardon me, but, you know, these shows like Critical Role, not really my thing, and people just playing over Zoom and such, not really what I'm after. I'd really like to get back to playing 1st Edition Dungeons & Dragons the way I remember it in my youth. Now the second bucket is all those people out there that are making content, reviews. You know, they're reviewing modules, they're reviewing books, and they're talking about what their favorite classes to play are, and how to maximize a particular class, you know, an invincible this, or rating spells and everything. Again, a lot of 5th Edition type stuff. Not a whole lot of 1st Edition, although I do have an example of one that I really like. And I'll go through all those in a minute, but you know, that's going to be what I'm calling my second bucket. Third bucket of content I see is people who aren't really playing Dungeons & Dragons, but they're playing other role-playing games solo. Now friends, there's really nothing wrong with any of this, but those who are playing solo tabletop role-playing games, they're playing 4 Against Darkness, or D100 Dungeon, or a handful of others. Mythic, I think, is one, or maybe Mythic is just more of a book that you use as a I forgot what they call it, an oracle. Maybe it's something like that. I'm not positive to be sure what Mythic is exactly, but Again, nothing wrong with that. It's good stuff for some people. It's just not what I'm after right now. So, some examples of these I mentioned in the first category, Critical Role, and then under the reviews and things, I want to make a shout out to the Eldar guy. His name David Thomson, not Thompson with a P, but Thomson without, from Australia. He's got great content on his channel. Again, it's called The Eldar Guy is the link to the channel, but you'll see the channel name as David Thomson if you were just looking at his page. And he's going over the first edition rules. He has other stuff too, but that's really what I gravitate towards. And man, he does such a great job. He really explains the rules well and the details about those rules and why they are. All the things that really Gary Gygax and a handful of others started out doing long ago, and why they did it the way they did. And for example, spell components, and why it is that there's an armor class adjustment for weapons, things like that. Highly recommend his channel, but the other reviews don't really speak to me too much. Another example of someone who's playing Dungeons and Dragons isn't quite playing it like he did before, but I want to call it out. At Solo Dungeon Crawler. Solo Dungeon Crawler was making some really excellent content in the beginning. Early on, it was just fantastic. He had great sound effects and music and visuals and everything. It was really good, and he was actually playing. But then later on, it became something that was more just updates. Now he's doing just kind of periodic updates on what's going on in the game that he's playing off screen, off channel. Another one, and he plays original Dungeons and Dragons. He's using the white box, I'll call it, if you remember those days. It was just three little pamphlets, kind of. They came after, just after Chainmail came out. Another one is The Joy of Wargaming. Now, he's actually playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons solo on his channel, but he plays a lot of other games too. And so far, he hasn't come back to AD&D 1E. We'll see if he gets back there one day, but I recommend it. That is The Joy of Wargaming. And then there's Wizard Deadloss. Wizard Deadloss plays the BECMI style or version, release, edition, whatever you want to call it. BECMI stands for something like Basic, Expert, Companion. I don't quote me on this. I forget it. It's Frank Menser's rules that he wrote back in the 80s. It was another box set of Dungeons and Dragons that wasn't just the standard box set that came out when I was a kid. Actually, there were two that came out when I was a kid. There was the one that I got in the 70s, which was kind of a red color and had a red dragon on a horde in front with a wizard and a fighter approaching it. And then there was another one that I also got later on that was more of a kind of like a pink color, I want to say. Like a, I don't know, maybe lavender or something, purple, pink, something like that. And then also I want to call out Bandits Keep Actual Play. He also plays original Dungeons and Dragons. kind of white box version. But I haven't seen him play first edition. He plays solo though, and he's got some great content. He's got actually 2 channels. He's got another Bandits Keep channel that's really just about rules and reviews and discussions and things like that. But the Bandits Keep actual play, he's playing, he's playing right there on screen, and that's great. So that's kind of the why I'm doing it. Oh, there's another reason though. Another reason I'm doing this is because, again, I'm old and I just don't have friends who want to get together anymore. I have plenty of friends, but not friends who, 1, play Dungeons and Dragons, 2, if they did play Dungeons and Dragons, would they play first edition? I think most of them would, because we all grew up together and we all, still have a lot of that content and such. But they have kids and jobs and things, and it was already hard enough to get people together before COVID, but then when COVID happened, that was it. It's like nobody got together, and so they've been talking to me here lately about, why don't you want to play with a computer? But I just really don't want to play. Of course I'm streaming this, so this is on the computer, you might say, but I'm trying to limit the amount of work and the overall workflow that I'm doing here, because what I'm hoping to do really is play the game. Pen and paper, roll the dice, look at the books. I grew up playing war games originally. When my gaming started, it was with hex-based war games, with chits on a actual board. And man, I loved looking up the charts and the stats and keeping up with everything and resources and surround and indirect fire and all that great stuff. I didn't really get into miniature wargaming like the Napoleonic and such, but great stuff. And I still have lots of other games, but can't get people to get together to play even Talisman or Eldritch Horror or whatever, right? They want to play on the computer, but not face to face, and that's really what I was after in regards to playing with friends. They'll play on the computer if I could get, I forget the name of some of the apps that allow you to play these board games over the internet, but I don't need any extra computer time in my life. I already play Neverwinter Nights and a couple other computer games. Neverwinter Nights is itself 20 years old now. Great stuff. Love it. But, that's as much as I really want to deal with over the computer as far as Dungeons and Dragons goes. So, what do I plan on doing here? What is it I'm doing? Well, besides, again, getting back to playing first edition Dungeons and Dragons, I want to create a campaign that can be ongoing. We'll see how long it lasts. A lot of channels don't make it very far, and I might not either. But I'm going to give it a good try. That's really the focus here. I may play some other games. I might actually play some Neverwinter Nights and stream it, but at this point, it's all about the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And what I'd like to do is play it the way I always wanted to as a kid. The DMs that I had previously, I DM'd a little bit, but other people DM'd more often, and there were a lot of the rules that were omitted. Especially things like to hit adjustments for armor class and spell components and travel time. A lot of those things were just, when we were younger, we weren't keeping track of all those things, and I'd like to. I think they're really important for creating balance in the game and creating more of a cohesion and keeping it all together. I think everything kind of goes together, and especially the balance part. It's really important to include all the rules, in my opinion. So, also, I'll be using all TSR or old school type books and all the equipment that I'll use, pretty much, except for one book. There's one book that I'll be using that is not specific TSR or Judges Guild, and I'll get to that in a minute. But another part of what I'm doing here is to rekindle the excitement of using all the old content that I have. So some of that content, of course, I'll be using the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, the Monster Manual, the Player's Handbook, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. This, in essence, is the game, right? So, of course, be using these books. Along with these books, the campaign will be set in a world that I'm creating using the Elfin Lands campaign map, which is a Judges Guild map. It's from the 70s. I got this when I was a young man. Actually, more than a young man. I was a kid. But it's still, Dave Arneson worked for Judges Guild at the time, so I don't feel like I'm straying far from the original Gygaxian TSR content when I say I'll be using this, right? Some other things that I'll be using: the original AD&D Dungeon Master's screen here. Quick, handy way to find some of the charts instead of always having to look them up in the books, although I will be using a lot of the content in the books. I don't intend on this being a channel that has, shows that fly by. The content may move kind of slowly, especially at first, but we'll see how that all plays out. It might not be everybody's cup of tea when it comes to, okay, stop, look at this rule, check this out. But hey, that's what it's all about. That's the way it works when you play, and that's probably how it will work here on this channel. Because I'm going to be using this Judges Guild map, and because I also don't want to be metagaming too much, when I use modules and things, I'll be changing some things so as not to metagame as much. Certainly there will have to be a little bit of metagaming here and there just to make things flow and move along, but for the most part I'm going to try and eliminate metagaming by changing different aspects of modules and other content. So Village of Hamlet is one of the modules that I'll be using. I won't be using the whole thing. First off, it will become the village of Tahant. Tahant is right here on the map. This is where the party will start, in this village of Tahant, and it will be actually the village of Hamlet, but instead of it being straight from the content being straight from the module as written, it will be everything except for a few aspects, like I'll be changing the name of the I'm not going to be calling the inn the Welcome Wench. Everybody knows it. I'll change the name to something else. Church of St. Cuthbert I'll leave in because St. Cuthbert was a very popular D&D in Greyhawk, and I think it'll be important to the party and what I'm doing. But I won't be using much of the Moat House. Moat House will be there. There still will be some things that I'll use, but for the most part, what happened in the the Temple of Elemental Evil is said and done. Even starting this module, it's talked about how that is somewhat in the past, and it will be even more in the past in my campaign. But there will be aspects of this that I'll still use, and especially in the early days when we first get started, because keeping a first level party alive is difficult, to say the least. Also, I'll be using this module, B1, in Search for the Unknown. The party won't know where this is or anything about it when I first begin. They'll have to discover where this is. So it'll kind of be like possibly a stage in the early development of the party. It only goes up to, it's a basic adventure, so I don't want to have fifth level, a whole entire fifth level party of 6 characters going through this, but hopefully there will be some way to fit it in the early days. Also, I'll be using Rogues Gallery. I don't know if people know much about this. There's not a whole lot of reviews and things on it because it's not a module or anything, but essentially what this is a it's a list of player characters and things that can be used for quickly creating parties and NPCs and things. So you don't have to actually sit there and roll up all the stats and equipment and everything for a fighter or an entire party. You can use these tables to come up with that information. So this might be a way to shorten the amount of time involved with getting things ready for particular parts of the overall campaign or NPCs or anything alike. And of course I'll be using some player character sheets. This one in particular, these are the my old basic ones. I don't think I'm going to use these though, even though I still have them, plenty of them. I think I'm going to use some of the advanced player character, AD&D player character sheets, the old orange ones if you are old enough to remember those. I found a source that'll allow me to print them out, and I'll probably end up using them because they'll have some additional reference places to reference information that's important to AD&D First Edition. So I'll be using some real character sheets from AD&D 1E. And then finally, the one book that I'll be using that is not actual Dungeons and Dragons, not TSR, not Judges Guild, is the Tome of Adventure Design. The reason I'm doing this is because there are some things that you have to work out if you're going to play solo, right? Some of these things are what I'm up against right now. One of them is, what are the aspects of eliminating metagaming as best as possible, and how am I going to deal with rumors? That's the biggest early on. Is how do you deal with rumors? Why would the party go to Swega or the Final Pass or any of these places if they don't have a reason to go? So the Tome of Adventure Design will give me a way to create some history, some reason to travel, some of the rumors and things and the way those things will develop. So this book will be enhancing the campaign, but it won't be necessarily, the basis, the focus of the campaign. I think this is really going to help stitch things together, you might say, to create that evolving storyline that is the life and times of the party of adventurers. So of course there'll be content from the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I'll use a lot. All these random tables, random dungeon generation, these things will become important pretty quick. I'm going to have another place that this campaign map is going to be the known world, and there'll be some background and history and things that the party will know. But of course, the party doesn't know all of this land. They just have some ability to get maps and information because this is somewhat of a known world, a known kingdom. It's not like there's a lot of places that no one has ever been and nobody knows about it. There's just faraway lands that are mysterious and still mainly, run by monsters and adversaries, some sort or another. But inside hills here, this little dot, if you can see it, is a mine. The party will also know about this mine in the hills. It's an abandoned mine. It's no longer active from the old days, but this will be a place where likely I will be using the random dungeon generator so that, not only am I creating something on the fly so that there's not any metagaming there, but you're using the actual TSR books and things rather than having to come up with all the different modules and just putting them here and say, here's what that module is, here's what that module is. I'm hoping it's not going to turn into that. So finally, let me talk briefly about where I am in all this. I'm nearly ready to begin. There's just a few more things to deal with before I start to actually roll up characters. I kind of have a party in mind. Of course, it will depend on the dice. If I don't end up rolling some particular class or stats that fit a particular class, then I won't run that character, but in general, I hope I will. Right now I'm trying to figure out exactly how a few of the details in an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1E campaign will work. There are certain things that a dungeon master would normally have to address before the party begins adventuring. Things like, are you going to use strict encumbrance rules? Will you be using spell components? When you have a magic user, will the magic user roll for spells randomly and have to find spells over time? Or will you just be able to pick them? Like, I think 5e, you just pick whatever spells you want and you have them, instead of having a chance to know based on your intelligence. I'm working on those things right now. I don't think it will take me much longer to figure that out. Weapon speed factors are another thing that I'm working on right now. Definitely want to use them, as well as the to hit modifiers based on armor class. And some of the hardest are the spell components. I think I've pretty well settled on the spell components. I definitely would like to use them. It's, can I find the information that I need before I start this to make it reasonable to do so? For example, if I say, okay, I am going to use components, and then it turns out that I roll a spell that, in the first couple of levels, it requires something that I can't possibly get, it doesn't lend to the kind of flavor, to excitement and such. So, I think though that I will be. I found a dragon magazine. I think it's number 81 or 86, something like that. That has some information about using spell components in AD&D back from the old days. I think it was 81 or 82 when that came out. I'm not positive there. Don't quote me on that one, but I've pretty well settled on it, and it's just a matter of getting it all organized and printed out and ready to go, so it's in hand when needed. So I'm finishing up with that, and once I have those few outstanding aspects of the game settled and I have decided on it, then I'll be ready to roll up characters. It'll be a party of 6, and again, we'll be starting in Tahant using the village of Hamlet, but it'll be the village of Tahant instead. And then there's just a tad bit of history that I want to have ready to go for the campaign as well. For example, I want to make sure that the leadership of the land is settled. That also is included in the village of Hamlet. It talks about the Viscount, I forget what the level of leadership, kind of like the noble who runs the region. Instead, I'm just going to come up with who the major leaders is, and I'm going to have Damkina here. This is a city on an island in the middle of the vast lake. That will be the main city where the leader lives. This is the headquarters of the whole land, you might say. So once that little bit of background is completed, I'll be rolling up characters, and I'll do that on stream. It may not go very quickly. Like I said, in the early days, this may not be very fast-paced, and that's okay for me. I hope it's okay for others, and it entices people to still watch. It's the way Dungeons & Dragons is played in real life. When you sit down at a table and play the game, things take time. Dungeon masters look up rules. There's discussion back and forth about what does that mean. For example, if I have a magic user who's going to throw daggers as a ranged weapon, and he can only carry so many. Let's say realistically he can carry 3 or 6, you know. When you throw those and after the round is over, or, you know, maybe I should say the entire combat is over, I'm going to want to go and collect those. And there isn't a whole lot of discussion about recovering ammunition. Things, you know, you shoot a bolt out of a crossbow and it hits your target. Is that bolt recoverable? I'm trying to work out details on how to decide whether something is still usable. There's certain item savings throws, there's certain things that aren't really in the rules as written that need to be figured out. So I'm going to chalk that up to the things like the spell component decisions. I think I'm pretty close there. I think what I'm going to do is use the standard linear equation for die roll and call it 10%. A dagger breaks or is damaged in some way, so it's unusable. So at the end of each combat, you know, after all the turns are done and you're collecting, you know, rummaging through the bodies and pulling out things out of the pockets and such, I'll collect the daggers or darts, let's say, and on a 1 out of 10, the dagger would be damaged. So, you know, I threw 3 daggers, that one's fine, 2's fine, 3 is fine. So I still have 3 daggers. Arrows, bolts, I'm not sure about, but a short bow can fire twice in a round. So if you have a quiver of 12 arrows or a quarrel of bolts being a score, 20, you know, how many of those can you recover? I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that, but I don't want to be saying, oh, I'm going to go into this mine and we're going to start adventuring, and we end up time-wise, you know, if I actually track time, which is incredibly important. You know, there is no campaign if you don't have strict timekeeping. That's hardcore, a hardcore rule in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition, timekeeping. So, you know, let's say you travel a few days, you have a couple of encounters, then you go down in the dungeon and you spend 4 days there, so you've been gone a week, and you know, you fired your bow so many times, you're gonna run out of arrows. You probably cannot keep enough arrows on you to satisfy the amount of time that you would like to say you stay in the dungeon and adventure. So, you know, again, kind of final aspects to deal with before rolling up characters. Yeah, I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to discuss in an introduction. So I'm going to leave it there, friends. I know this wasn't a super exciting beginning, but it gives a solid introduction to what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm going to go about doing it, and what are my next steps. So I'm really excited. I'm sure you can hear by the way I'm talking about all of this that I am excited, and I hope I'm excited enough to deal with the stress and drama of streaming this and sharing it with other people. I hope that the other people like it. I hope that if you're watching this now, you come back and watch another episode, because if this continues on for any decent length of time, the storyline is going to be pretty darn cool, and it will, I think, also give a lot of people who've never played First Edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons an idea of how the game is actually played, how it works, what are some of the dynamics of the rules that people a lot of times didn't play with, like keeping up with food and water, and how, you know, it makes spells like the cleric spell create water important. Using spell components, that can be an entire reason for going out on an adventure, is because the magic user doesn't have some particular component for a new spell that he's got, and he needs to go out and find, you know, a place where you can source squid ink, let's just say, you know, as simple as that. Back in the day, I'm sure way out here in Tahant, the coast is way over here. I don't know, this is part of the sea that comes out over there's an outlet there to the sea, so this is a port city, and maybe there are merchants who bring squid ink all the way over here because the Temple of Elemental Evil was involved, and there were lots of mages here, and, you know, clerics need them to write scrolls, magic scrolls and things. They need that as part of their ink or something, whatever the deal is. I think you get my point here. So, yeah, I'm just starting to ramble here. I'm so excited about getting this going. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you on another stream. Goodbye.